You know, my dears, after so many years lived, and look, it's been more than 7 decades of stories to tell, I discovered that one of the greatest blessings life can give us is the freedom to be who we truly are. Let me share with you a bit of this wisdom that only years can bring. I remember it like it was yesterday. For 42 years, I was married to John. He was a good man, don't get me wrong, but he had his way of wanting to control little things in my day-to-day life. "Mary," he would say, "that floral dress is too flashy for your age." Or, "Why do you need to dye your hair red? It doesn't suit a lady." And I, to keep the peace, would give in, changing my choices, adapting my tastes. When I found myself alone again, I confess that at first came that fear, that feeling of emptiness. But gradually, a curiosity began to grow in me. Who would I be without those small daily limitations? That's when I started making small changes. First, I painted a living room wall vibrant yellow, something John would never allow. "Too flashy," he would say. But you know what? Every morning, when I have my coffee looking at that sunny wall, I feel an inexplicable joy in my heart. I started wearing the clothes I always wanted. That floral dress I had kept for years in the back of the closet. Now it's my favorite piece to wear to the Sunday farmer's market. And people? Oh, they smile when they see me, say I'm radiant. Of course, there are also those who frown, thinking it's not appropriate for my age. But you know what? I don't care about those opinions anymore. One of the greatest liberations was learning to say yes and no without needing to justify myself. The other day, my neighbor, Mrs. Thompson, invited me for afternoon tea. Before, I would go even if I didn't want to, just to not displease. Now, I politely thank her and say I have other plans when I'm not in the mood. And you know what's the best part? These other plans can simply be staying at home, in my pajamas, watching that soap opera I love so much, or reading a good book. With this freedom, I discovered that I like things I never imagined. I started taking painting classes at the community center, something John would think was a waste of time. My paintings aren't masterpieces, but each brushstroke brings me immense joy. I discovered that I love jazz music. Who would have thought? Me, who only listened to the songs that played on the radio John tuned. Nowadays, I have my own rituals. I wake up early, not because someone expects coffee on the table, but because I love to see the sunrise. I have my breakfast on the porch, sometimes at 6 a.m., sometimes at 9 a.m. There's no set time. I eat what I feel like. Sometimes it's bread with butter. Other times it's just a fruit. There's no one to say, "But just that? You need to eat properly." Of course, not everything is rosy on this journey of self-discovery. I've made my mistakes. Once, excited about my new freedom, I bought a set of purple furniture for the living room. A real disaster. But you know what's most beautiful? I could laugh at myself, learn from the mistake, and then exchange it for something that really suited me. There was no one to throw in my face. I told you so. One of the biggest lessons I learned is that being yourself doesn't mean being perfect. It means accepting your imperfections, your peculiar tastes, your quirks. Today, I talk to myself around the house and laugh at my own jokes. I sing in the shower, even with my out-of-tune voice. I dance in the living room, even with my joints complaining. The most interesting thing is how this freedom affected my relationships. My children notice the change. "Mom, you're different," they say. And I am. When we allow ourselves to be authentic, relationships become more genuine. Today, my conversations with them are more honest, deeper. I no longer need to pretend everything is fine when it's not. This freedom also brought me new friendships, people who accept me exactly as I am. In the painting group, I met Mrs. Sullivan, who also loves to wear colorful clothes and has a parrot that sings opera. Who would have thought that at 70 I would make such a special friend? If there's one thing I've learned, it's that it's never too late to be who you are. Each wrinkle on my face tells a story, some from moments when I hid, others from moments when I finally allowed myself to shine. Today, when I look in the mirror, I see a woman who took her time, but finally found her true essence. For you who are reading this, whether young or already with a few years under your belt like me, know that being yourself is the greatest gift you can give yourself. It doesn't have to be a radical change. It can start with small steps. Wear that stored outfit, try that different food, speak your mind. Politely, of course. Remember, you don't need anyone's approval to be happy. The only person who needs to like your life is yourself. And believe me, when you allow yourself to be authentic, it's like a huge weight is lifted off your shoulders. As I always say to my grandchildren, Grandma took 70 years to learn to be herself, but you can start right now. Oh, my dears, after so much time lived, I've learned that taking care of our emotions is just as important as taking care of high blood pressure or diabetes. I'll share with you how I discovered the importance of emotional autonomy after my 70s, and how it completely changed my way of living. During 45 years of marriage to Albert, I was the person who always tried to keep everything in order. If he came home nervous from work, I'd quickly prepare his favorite tea and listen to his complaints. If he was sad, it was my duty to cheer him up. If he was anxious about a problem, I'd spend sleepless nights worrying along with him. As my mother used to say, a woman must be the pillar of the house. When I found myself alone, I first felt a huge void. But then, I began to notice something curious. For the first time in decades, I only needed to worry about my own emotions. It was like taking off a heavy backpack I didn't even know I was carrying. One day my daughter Marcia asked me, "Mom, how are you feeling?" And you know what happened? I was silent for several minutes. I realized I didn't know how to answer. I had spent so much time taking care of others' emotions that I had forgotten to pay attention to my own. At first it was difficult. The answers were always fine or normal. But over time, I learned to identify better. Today I'm a little anxious because I have a doctor's appointment. Or, I'm happy because I'm going to see my grandchildren. Or even, I'm sad. And it's okay to be sad sometimes. I started writing a diary. I affectionately called it Conversations with Nancy. That's my name. I then started a daily exercise. Every morning, while having my coffee, I would ask myself how I was feeling. In it, I write everything. The good days, the bad ones, worries about the children, joys with the grandchildren, missing Albert, fears of the future. It's amazing how putting feelings on paper helps us understand them better. One of the hardest lessons was learning not to be everyone's emotional savior. My youngest daughter, Patricia, always called me to vent about her work problems. Before, I would drop everything I was doing to listen to her and end up absorbing all her anxiety. Now, when I'm not emotionally available, I lovingly say, "Honey, Mom's not in a good place to talk about this right now. How about we have coffee tomorrow?" At first, she found it strange, but gradually understood that moms have their moments too. I started attending a support group at the community center. There, I met other people my age who were also learning to deal with their emotions. Mrs. Carmen, a widow for 10 years, taught me to meditate. Mr. Joseph showed me how gardening can be therapeutic. Mrs. Laura introduced me to Tai Chi. I discovered various ways to take care of my emotions. Every morning I do 15 minutes of deep breathing on the porch, listening to the birds. When I'm anxious, I do crochet. The repetitive movement of the needles has an incredible calming effect. On sad days, I allow myself to cry while watching those dramatic Mexican soap operas. When longing hits hard, I look at old photos and talk to the memories. Not everyone understood this new phase of mine. My older sister, Theodora, keeps saying, "Since when did you become so selfish? You have to help others more." At first, these words hurt me, but I learned that taking care of myself isn't selfish. It's necessary. At 73, I started therapy. My bingo friends thought it was absurd. Therapy is for young people. But you know what? It was one of the best decisions I've ever made. Dr. Claire helped me understand that all those emotions stored over the years needed to be processed. Loneliness. That old companion. Before, I saw it as an enemy, something to be avoided at all costs. I'd keep the TV on all day just to have noise in the house. Today, I've learned to make friends with it. Sometimes we sit together on the couch, have tea, and talk about life. This new Nancy, more aware of her emotions, changed the family dynamics in interesting ways. My children began to see me not just as mom, but as a person with her own feelings, desires, and limitations. At family gatherings, now I can say when I'm tired and want to leave, without feeling guilty. Over time, I realized that each emotion has its importance. Sadness teaches us to value happy moments. Anger shows us when something needs to change. Fear makes us more cautious. Joy reminds us that life is worth living. One of the greatest discoveries was learning that asking for help is not a sign of weakness. When I realized I was very sad with the arrival of winter, that so-called seasonal depression, I sought medical help. I take my medications without shame, just as I take them for high blood pressure. Why not take them to care for emotions? Today, at 75, I'm proud to say that I'm emotionally healthier than when I was 50. I share this experience with my friends at the community center, with my family, and now with you. For you who are reading this, remember, it's never too late to learn to take care of your emotions. Start slowly, be gentle with yourself, and remember that each person has their own time and their own way of dealing with feelings. As I always say to my grandchildren, Grandma took 70 years to learn that she also has the right to cry, to laugh, and to say no. But you can start this learning right now. And as my grandmother used to say, with that ancient wisdom, the heart also needs vitamins, and the best vitamin is taking good care of it. Oh, my dears, today I'm going to talk about a subject that touches deep in the heart of any parent, the relationship with their children. After my George passed away, I had to relearn how to be a mother. Sounds strange, doesn't it? But at 71, I discovered that I still had a lot to learn about being a mother to my grown children. When George was here, he was always the voice of reason in discussions with the kids. "Let me handle this, Teresa," he'd say, and I'd let him. When I found myself alone, I had to find my own voice. It was no longer George's wife giving an opinion. It was just me, Teresa, mother of 4 adult children. I have 4 children: Robert, 52, Martha, 48, Louis, 45, and Sarah, 42, each with their own life, their children, their quirks. Before, when there was a problem between them, their father would intervene. Now, I learned to position myself differently. I remember the day everything started to change. It was a Sunday, and as always, the kids came to have lunch at home. Martha and Sarah started that same old discussion about their father's inheritance. Robert, more explosive, was already red-faced, about to join the fight. In the past, I would have run to the kitchen crying, but that day was different. I calmly stood up, tapped my fork on the glass, like I used to do in my classes when I was a teacher, and said, "Enough. Today is not the day to discuss inheritance. Anyone who wants to continue this conversation can go home, because at my Sunday table there's only room for love and gratitude." The silence that followed. It was then that I started to establish some rules. Sunday is family day. No discussions about money or inheritances. Each child has their time to call me. Avoids that confusion of everyone calling during my favorite TV show. Problems between siblings should be resolved between them. I'm no longer a judge for adult children's fights. One of the hardest lessons was learning not to interfere in raising my grandchildren. 3 seconds later, Louis started laughing, and soon we were all laughing at the surprised looks on each other's faces. Martha raises the boys one way, Sarah another. Before, I was always giving my 2 cents. In my day, it wasn't like this. Today, I bite my tongue, count to 10, and only speak if they ask me. I created new rituals with each child. With Robert, I have coffee every Wednesday at the bakery near his house. With Martha, I go to the farmer's market on Saturdays with Louis. I watch soccer games. I even learned the rules. With Sarah, I take a craft class once a month. These are special moments, just for me and each of them, without interference from the other siblings, without pressure. Oh, how hard it was to learn to say no. Sarah always asked me to watch the kids when she wanted to go out. At first, I always accepted, even when tired. Today, "Honey, Mom can't today. How about we schedule for another day?" My children created a WhatsApp group just for us, called Teresa's Kids. There we share photos, schedule lunches, solve practical issues. I learned to send stickers. Sometimes I send the wrong ones, but they find it funny. It's an affectionate way to keep everyone connected. One beautiful thing that happened was the depth our conversations gained. The other day, Louis came to tell me about problems in his marriage. Before, I would have immediately started giving advice. Now, I sat, listened, and when he asked for my opinion, I said, "Son, What do you think you need to do? Each child is a different universe. Robert is systematic and organized like his father. Martha is emotional and intense like me. Louis is more reserved, needs space. Sarah is communicative and lively. I learned to respect each one's way and to communicate differently with each child. I changed the way I celebrate special dates. Before, I insisted on gathering everyone for every celebration. Now, on my birthday, for example, I have breakfast with one, lunch with another, dinner with the third. This way, each one has their special moment, without the pressure of bringing everyone together. Being a grandmother helped me be a better mother. With the grandchildren, I learned to be more patient, more understanding, and this reflected in the relationship with my children. As I always say, being a grandmother is having the wisdom that was missing when I was a young mother. A big change was understanding that I needed to take care of myself first. If I'm well, I can be a better mother. I started doing yoga. I have my book club friends. I do crossword puzzles. My children noticed the difference and started to respect my space more. Conflicts still exist, of course, but I learned to deal with them differently. I don't take sides. I listen to all sides. I encourage direct dialogue between them. I keep calm, most of the time. Over time, I understood that being a mother of adults is a delicate art. It's knowing how to be present without suffocating, advising without imposing, loving without controlling. As I say to my church group friends, a child is like a bird. It needs a firm branch to land on, but it needs freedom to fly. For you who are reading this, remember, it's never too late to renew ties with your children. Each age brings its challenges and joys in motherhood. At 71, I can say that I'm living the best phase as a mother, the one where I finally understood that I don't need to be perfect. I just need to be present and true. As I always tell my children, your mother is old on paper, but every day she learns something new about being a mother, and how good it is that I have you to learn with. Certainly. I'll continue the translation from where we left off, maintaining fidelity to the original text. My dear ones who have accompanied me this far, what a joy to be able to share all these experiences I've lived with you. Let's recall a bit of this wonderful journey we've traveled together. We started by talking about that delightful freedom of being who we really are. Remember? When I told you about painting the wall yellow and wearing that floral dress I love so much. Oh, how good it is to be authentic without fear of judgment. Then, we delved into that important conversation about taking care of our emotions. How liberating it was to learn that we don't need to carry everyone's emotional weight on our shoulders, right? That diary of Mrs. Nancy, I mentioned, became my best friend. And who would have thought that I, at 73, would learn to make electronic transfers? Our conversations about financial independence showed that it's never too late to take the reins of your own money. That little financial study group with the friends from the building is still going strong. Oh, and how I was moved sharing about the new relationship with my children. That story of the Sunday lunch, when I finally learned to set boundaries with love, still makes me smile. Before we say goodbye, I wanted to make a special request to you, my dears. If these stories touched your heart, how about leaving that loving like on the video? It's like a virtual hug you give me. And you know that comment section? I'd love to know which part of our conversation touched you the most. Was it when I talked about painting the wall yellow? Or when I told you about learning to use the banking app? Tell me in the comments. And if you know someone who needs to hear these stories, that aunt who's starting her journey alone, that friend who needs to rediscover her independence, or even your own mother, share this video with her. Sometimes, all we need is to know that we're not alone on this journey. As I always say to my grandchildren, Grandma may have white hair, but her heart is getting more colorful every day, and it was an immense joy to be able to color a little bit of your lives with my stories. Remember, it's never too late to start over, to rediscover yourself, to be happy. Each age brings its beauties and challenges, and the secret is to embrace each moment with love and wisdom. And before I go, don't forget, leave your loving, share your story in the comments, share with someone who needs to hear these words, and subscribe to the channel for more stories and wisdom from the best age. With all my love and gratitude, Mrs. Nancy. P.S. As my granddaughter says, Grandma, now you're a senior influencer. I'm not quite sure what that means, But if it's about influencing people to be happier and more authentic, then so be it.